All right. Hello, my name is Tori. I am a biological licensure major. Science is the bomb. So I think the fact that I got to do a presentation on a man named Piaget was pretty cool, and you're going to see why. The name of his theory was the cognitive theory of development. His name was John Piaget. He was born in Switzerland in 1896 and died in 1980. Supposedly, he traveled to many different places across France. Across Europe, France being one of the places he went to study education, psychology, and science. At the age of 11, he wrote a story. He wrote a paper about an albino sparrow. This paper basically sparked his writing career. He wrote over 60 books, and he wrote hundreds and hundreds of articles about both psychology and science, and education, of course. He was fascinated by molluscology, which is basically the study of mollusks, such as like your bivalves and your cephalopods, which is pretty cool. They're amazing creatures, so I don't blame them. He obtained a PhD in the natural sciences, which would be physics, geology, chemistry, biology. But seemingly, the method of scientific thinking influenced his theory of education, which was called cognitive development. He gained an interest in psychoanalysis, which is basically the study of mental illnesses. So he used knowledge that he learned through studying psychoanalysis to organize and perform expert studies in psychology and genetic epistemology. Epistemology is just a fancy word for the study of knowledge and how the brain develops over time. So in regards to genetics, I think it's fascinating because with the albino sparrow, he's seemingly always been fascinated by genetics because the albino sparrow, I'm sure in that paper he wrote about how in order for the sparrow to be albino, it had to obtain two recessive genes from both parents, and they were equally expressed. But anyway, he asked, how does knowledge grow? And with that question, he went on to explore cognitive development. He said cognitive development explains how a child constructs a mental model of the world. Cognitive development is a progressive reorganization of mental processes as a result of biological maturation and environmental experiences. So, in other words, Piaget described that a child's knowledge and brain development occurs basically in parallel to how they interact with their environment, which is pretty solid and cool. So he wanted to imply and make it clear that children think very differently than adults do. Because before his cognitive theory of development, people believed that children were basically just miniature versions of adults. However, Piaget's study implied that children reason very differently than adults do, and they actively construct an understanding of the world as they grow. So he created these 4 stages of cognitive development, 1 being sensory motor, 2 being pre-operational, 3 being concrete operational, and 4 being formal operational. So during stage 1, sensory motor, the child is becoming more aware of how to use his or her senses, such as sight, taste, touch, and smell. They're very active. They move their bodies around to explore the world and experience new things. And he used a term called object permanence when he would talk about stage 1. And so basically this describes that children are unaware that an object still exists if they can't see it. So for example, if you were holding a ball in front of a child and then you were to hide the ball, the child would believe that the ball just doesn't exist anymore. They're unaware that that ball still exists just because they can't see it. And imitation is also heavily utilized during stage 1. And this roughly occurs between the beginning of birth and ages and 2 years old. During stage 2, children undergo pretend play. Imagination is very important, and it's heavily utilized during this stage of growth. Children begin to understand how to use symbols to represent things. These symbols could include words or other various things. And children are also very egocentric during this stage, and the fact that they are unaware that people have different points of view and perceptions, and that people think about things very differently. And so the pre-operational stage occurs between ages 2 and 7. All of the years that these stages occur are just approximations because everyone experiences different things at different times during their lives. So someone could be at a certain stage and someone could be at a different stage when they're the same age. Just varies. So at the age of 7 to 11, child should be in the concrete operational stage. They begin to clearly understand ideas of conservation. They implement their thinking with more hands-on problems than they do abstract problems. And they begin to reason about mathematics. For example, if a child understands that 6 plus 4 equals 10, then that child should be able to understand and figure out that then 10 minus 6 equals 4. So in the formal operational stage, student begins to understand more abstract concepts. They begin to reason about what might occur based on the fact that actions have consequences, and they begin to undergo more. They begin to have more moral reasonings, and the fact that they begin to understand a bit more that people have different points of view and don't see the world the same way. What one word means to one person might mean something different to another person. They begin to see those things. So when applying this theory to the classroom, the teacher should not expect students to consistently see the world from someone else's point of view. They should be sensitive to the fact that the words have different meanings for each student, provide a wide range of experiments to build a learning foundation, and provide hands-on practice with skills that serve as building blocks for more complex skills. Teachers should be aware, or teachers should attempt to analyze what level of thinking a child is on in order to help that student achieve goals academically. So as secondary educational teachers, we will more than likely see a lot of students in that stage 4, which would be ages 12 and up. So grades 6 through 9th would be a big time for that stage, basically. And during that stage, teachers, for students who are in that stage, they're beginning to conceptualize with love and value and understand their capability and potential to achieve goals. They're still quite egocentric too, which if you've been around students of that age before, then you should be able to reflect on those ideas and recognize them, because I have a sister who's 15 years old, and she's drifting away out of that stage a bit more, I guess, but I can actually see where Piaget was coming from. It's kind of cool. So some pros to it. It has a major impact on education, and it has greatly improved everyone's understanding of cognitive development. It's actually helped a lot of scientists create their own theories about education. Instructional strategies have been formed based on this theory, and it also allows children to be taught at the level they are developmentally prepared. There's a few cons to it. Unfortunately, this theory was based on bias. But a lot of theories that I guess are mainly focused on how the mind is developed are going to be quite biased. A lot of sociology, I would assume, has a lot of bias implemented into it. But Piaget greatly underestimated children's ability, which I could see that's probably an easy thing to do, but that's just what he did. But anyway, I hope you think this theory is pretty cool, because I think it's a big deal. And I'm trying to get my cover to come up. But as a future scientist, as a future science teacher, I think it was really cool reading about Piaget, and I'm thankful I was assigned this particular theorist. So anyway, have a good one.